Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching to my radio voice. And today I am recording with Dan McCue, who has had a very interesting career with insurance. So today we have a career episode uh, on the marketing side of both
Yes.
insurance and
Yeah.
insurtech, which is a side that I've never played in. So Dan, first of all, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Certainly. It's as we're recording today, it's October. I don't know you listener when you're listening, it may be another season for you, but I'm located here in Iowa and it is a postcard perfect October day. Leaves are peak color, sky is blue. It's warm enough that you don't have to wear the coat, but cool enough that you still want a light jacket.
So my experience with Iowa, 10 years in Iowa, mostly
That's
in
right.
Des Moines. My experience is that there's about 2 days of nice weather a year. The
Yes.
day that you get, the day that you leave.
Yep.
Uh, so you have to enjoy the few that you get before the long winter ahead.
That's right. That's
Uh,
right. Yeah, we will have we could have a whole other episode. One of the things that we started doing, I think this will be our 14th year doing it, is a skating rink in our backyard each winter. Because as you know, you've done some Iowa winters and some Midwest winters, and winter, we don't have the mountains like Colorado or New England, and we don't have lots of lake effect snow like Michigan or Ohio or New York. So we have to make our own joy in winter,
it's
and
just
so
very cold and
it
sometimes
is
very.
very cold. And it's cold enough that you can, I mean, people don't think for a moment about filling a swimming pool for 3 months in the summer. So ours is just a very shallow swimming pool that we put knife shoes on and skate on each winter.
Oh, that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
what, like 3-4 feet shallow?
I mean, really, you just need, for us here in America, like 3 or 4 inches of water at shallowest, and then our deep end is around a foot. So that, you're talking 8 to 10 centimeters to, our deepest part is about 30 centimeters.
Okay, so that's a pool that's really much more fun in the winter than it is in the
Yeah,
summer.
yeah, yeah. And then, spring comes, it turns into a puddle. We use a plastic liner, sorry, Mother Earth, and so we'll just poke some holes and slits and let it drain out into the yard as the yard thaws out in March, and then we'll do it all again. So yeah, next month we'll be putting the rink out.
That is the weirdest thing. That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Had never seen a pool that was specifically for the winter.
I
Uh,
will. I've got some pictures after maybe in the show notes we can.
okay. Perfect. So then you go to school, get a degree in communications.
Yes.
Uh, as you're doing that, I'm pretty sure you were not thinking insurance.
No, no, like so many of us that have found long careers in insurance, I had no intentions of seeking out and had never given a thought to a career in insurance. And living here in Iowa, I'm in a college town, Grinnell, and had moved here to work for that college in a sort of marketing role. I was in alumni relations, and this is the late aughts, and all of our social networks that we just take for granted for now. Then Facebook, it was making that transition from just EDU to now it's everybody. And LinkedIn was gaining steam as a platform, as was Twitter and others. And so, um, and then right, email marketing, like this was, we were getting into more sophistication there, and so there were all these things, and in my alumni relation work, which is highly segmented, outcome driven, multi-channel, right? Because there's some in person, and then there's community and sometimes we're asking for money, other times we're asking for volunteering, other times we're just trying to make connections. And it was very clear to me that this social networking, all of this digital marketing was going to fundamentally change how we do marketing. kind of in a way like AI is doing today. You know, if we have time at the end, we can talk more about that. But it was very much that kind of a this is going to be a fundamental shift, and in a sense, good for marketing because it allows us to do the things that we do well in terms of telling story, building connection. Unfortunately, for a number of reasons, the college at the time wasn't ready to make that commitment. So, but had made connections with the marketing department at Grinnell Mutual, which is a regional property casualty company here. So, switched industries from higher ed into insurance, property casualty, and went from, you know, as anyone who's attended college or worked in education, very easy to find story on a college campus. You know, you're really in a marketing role being that curator of what's the best story to tell rather than just finding a story. And things are very concrete. You've got faculty and alumni and students and staff and many, just lots of great stories. Going into insurance, part of the thing that got me excited about the position was you're telling the story of an intangible. You're marketing an intangible. I had a colleague at Grinnell Mutual that in a claims position, and he described insurance as we're keepers of the promise. And sometimes it's helpful for us, you know, wherever we are in the insurance space, to think about um, what business we're in. We're in risk management. We're in giving people that sense of security and trust that in their moment of greatest need, because almost no one goes in, wakes up every morning saying, today's the day I'm going to file a claim. And so it's in those moments where insurance goes from a promise to that claims experience where we're acting on the promise. And so it took a while to unlearn and relearn and understand what kinds of stories worked well in the insurance space and how to tell that story. Um, of course, too, with insurance, I was working for a property casualty industry or carrier. And so with that industry, the story that we tell for property casualty looks a little different than it might if we're a life or a health insurance carrier. They sold through and continue to sell through the independent agent channel. And so being mindful that we're trying to reach a policyholder, but also we're telling a story to an agent audience too. And sometimes we need to create content that's not just going to engage the end policyholder, that future customer, but also engage that audience so that they want to, kind of take what you're sharing and then put it out on their own Facebook page. Well, back then it would have been Facebook page or e-newsletter on their website as well.
And you went to a particularly interesting insurance company because Grinnell is not only a primary carrier via agent distribution,
Hmm.
they're also a reinsurer.
That's correct.
So even more complicated
So
setup.
much more complicated. Yeah, what a funny story about, about that. Yeah, when your business name is reinsurance, that can create some confusion in the marketplace. And so, heard, heard a story. One of my, I don't know if it was a colleague or former colleague, someone had asked them, what's reinsurance? And they're like, oh, it's just better insurance. That's all it is. Yeah, and so yeah, so thanks for calling that out, Tony, because then in addition to those agents and the policyholder, you also have that audience of your membership that is being reinsured by Grinnell Mutual. At the time, I think it was over 250 insurance companies, mostly located in the Midwest. Um, and so, yeah, it was a pretty, it is a complicated business model when you think about all these different parts and relationships and how they work together and how they, kind of what's the story. It's easy to get lost in the weeds. We could probably spend the rest of the hour just talking about the complexities of a B2B to C in insurance and a B2B to B to C in insurance. But end of the day, the policyholder, even the agent and the mutual, they don't really care about kind of the technicalities and the mechanics of how that works. We need to find what in the things that I learned were what engages them, what creates that sense of connection. Kind of skipping ahead a few years in my time at Grinnell Mutual, but um, we had the opportunity to do the first enterprise-wide rebrand since the 1960s for that company, and did a considerable amount of market research. And the thing that we found, whether with these different stakeholder groups, so whether you were an employee, policyholder, agent, worked for one of the member mutual companies, trusted relationships, that was, and continues to be for Grinnell Mutual, their secret sauce. Um, the relationships that those different stakeholder groups have with Grinnell Mutual staff, that is what we all know, especially in the personal line space, there's a maybe an uncomfortable degree of commoditization with insurance. And so we have to find ways to build that trust and to build, we could spend a whole hour talking about brand marketing, but the upshot is, what can we do to make ourselves memorable, to make ourselves distinct? And for Grinnell Mutual was the trusted relationships. So one of the things in my role doing digital marketing for Grinnell Mutual, I'm looking at us putting together this, multi-year rebrand and marketing plan, and I'm looking at the research saying, here's all of this trusted relationship. And I look at what we're doing right now, and we're doing what a lot of insurance companies do, senior leadership, a lot of suits. Uh, and no shade to the senior leaders of any carrier or agency or anything, but those folks are not the ones that when you make a phone call or you're having claims adjusted, right? It's your adjuster, it's your underwriter, it's your call center rep that's answering the phone. Those are the people that, by and large, that we're working with, and we weren't telling their stories. So I said we need to tell their stories, and made the case. Can we make room for employee stories, and also maybe we need to tell some agent stories. Maybe we need to tell some stories, these member mutuals. Ideally, we'd make room for policyholder stories too, but that can get tricky. Just because sometimes if you had a claim, maybe that's not something you want to talk about. Though we were able to tell a few of those stories, and so we did. We made space. Ended up really making it a key pillar of that rebrand. And it was received well. Went multi-channel with it. There's articles on the website, there's videos, of course, social media, putting those posts, and then the response was really really positive. And of course, you make it once, you distribute it everywhere, you keep remixing it, all the marketing jazz.
How much of a team did it take to get that done? Was it basically you and a graphic
Oh,
designer,
oh
or
yeah, yeah. So by the time of the rebrand, we were a team of about 15.
okay, so that's sizable.
Yeah, yeah. When I had started, I was the first digital marketing hire. It was a team of four, and yeah, when I left the organization a decade later, team about 15. And so I guess, like, to answer your question in a little bit different way, there are core functions, and depending on the size of your organization, that might be a one person, or you might contract with either an individual or an agency to do those things. But and it might look different whether you're a carrier or a broker or an agent. But um, the thing that I keep finding, Tony, as I talk with carriers and talk with agents and brokers and just really everyone in the space, it's um, understanding your why. Some of your listeners probably have heard Simon Sinek, the Start with Why, or watched his TED Talk video. Um, I'm not an acolyte necessarily of his or his book, but I think that question of what's our why. We talked earlier about that idea of we're keepers of the promise. We're helping our customers manage risk. And so I think for us as marketers, we can't want it more than our leadership, but we can start to raise those questions of, why are we in business? Who are we serving? What do we do? I had a conversation recently, many, if you're selling through an independent agent channel, we still have tens of thousands of independent agencies in the country. There's a lot of mergers going on because I suspect that there are a lot of people who inherited a family business and they realize that insurance and risk management and that being that keeper of the promise is not their passion. But there are some great independent agencies out there. One that comes to mind for me, located here in Iowa, but working many places in the Midwest around the country, is the Lee Agency, down in Muscatine, I believe. And something that they do as an example of understanding your why is they realize that they're not just an insurance agency, that they're not just placing business, that they have an opportunity and they really take pride and ownership in helping their customers. And they focus on niches: long-term care, church, agriculture are three that come to mind. They may have others. Those are the ones where I've seen them work and where I've seen them thrive. And they just do it different, right? Like independent agents, right? You've got support staff who are, helping, whether that's renewal or payment or, kind of being that intermediary when there's a claims issue. And of course, they check all of those boxes. Where they separate themselves is um, really trying to understand the market. They have, for example, with long-term care, they have people on staff who have worked in long-term care facilities, who have been the risk manager in a long-term care facility. And as a result, then they're able to really fully understand. They can proactively identify the kinds of things that may come up in a loss control review and say, "Hey, your renewal's coming up. When I look at what happened last year, this could be, this could be an issue. If we can get this addressed now, that will help lower your premium." They're also doing, education and continuing education where they're bringing together uh, leadership and people who have risk management function in long-term care facilities so that they, basically creating a community in a sense. And they do the same with agriculture and their church business as well. So I think for, as we kind of going all over the map now, but
So
um,
the community piece, I think it's very, very, very
yeah.
interesting. Um, it's a big part of what we've done with insurance nerds is create a community of insurance professionals.
Hmm.
Um, so the community creation, community managing, does that tend to fall under the digital marketing side? I've never actually thought of this.
Yeah, that's a really, I think, um, I think one of the things that I'm beginning to see, I'd seen it really over the past decade working in insurance, and I think it's only going to accelerate, is there's a marketing role, but these sorts of things where we're talking about strategy, communication, building community, building niche, marketing's inherently cross-functional and silo breaking. So I think it's really important for us to not think about where this lives. When we think about where it lives, it's going to wither on the vine. It's going to get dropped. Um, what we have to decide, maybe a better question to ask is that start with why. If we want to, I'm thinking of the fish book about the fishmongers there at Pike's Market or Pike. what's the name of the market?
Pike Place, and yeah,
Thank you, Pike Place Market. Thank you.
focus fish.
Yeah. And I've seen the fishmongers in action. It's, it is as advertised, but their goal was to be world class fishmongers. They could just be another fish market. But they wanted to, there's a sense of teamwork and camaraderie. But they're committed to the customer service, and they're committed to make it a little bit of show too. And so I think what we have to decide, whether we're carrier, whether we're agent, broker, trade association, vendor, what are we doing uh, as it relates to insurance? The quote from Chris Klein. Ultimately, another way to put it in more insurance ways is we indemnify claims. Everything we do in insurance, it's indemnity. So, okay, that's helpful, but let's be a little bit more aspirational. If we go around talking about indemnity all the time, people, we're not going to get invited to many cocktail parties or
Not
coffee
taking things
coffee
seriously.
dates or anything like that. So let's get out of the insurance jargon. Let's talk in the language of our customers. And um, for one thing that I'm seeing, I think it will continue to grow is insurance around high net worth individuals. And some of the high touch that agencies like to do are really well suited to high net worth individuals. And so there's some carriers, some specialty carriers focusing on that space. There's some agents focusing on that space. Great. Okay, if that's it, starting to have those conversations with your customer. If you're an agency and you want that to be your niche or your niche, excuse me, uh, what are the things that my customers, what are their pain points? What's keeping them up at night? What are the problems where we as an agency can help them solve that problem or can create a community that together can solve that problem? Again, using Lee as an example, um, all these, right, all these long-term care facilities, they're all struggling with the same sorts of things. They're reimbursement rates with Medicare, liability issue, workforce issues, right? The past several years have been really difficult for recruiting and retaining talent. And if you're a nurse, long-term care is not the most desirable position compared to the other options for nursing. So, get these people together in a room, right? And obviously, the end goal is retain these customers, get the word of mouth. Of course, of course. But they have these other problems. And if we can bring together the community, make connections. Oh, how did you? Oh, we're really struggling with the talent shortage issue. That's not an insurance issue on the surface. It could be an insurance issue if you're understaffed and right, it could crop up in other ways. So uh, bring people together, help them solve each other's problems, create that space. I think that's from the community standpoint, and that takes a visionary. Again, whether you're a carrier, agency, broker, um, I think of a quote that can kind of be off-putting for some people. Being the best, it's never crowded at the top. So if we aspire to, there's a lot of places in insurance that are commoditized, but if we can find our niches, build community around that niche, we're going to create that word of mouth. We're going to create that reputation for our company, our customer. From a marketing perspective, yeah, we're going to still need to do the basics. We need a website. We might need email. We might need to do social media and whatnot. But it's all going to be in service of a greater goal of being known in that niche.
So 10 years. Uh,
10 years.
they very traditional.
Hmm.
Very. I'm guessing Grinnell's probably 100 years old. If I had
It
to.
is, yes, they will turn 100 and it was 1909, so they'll be 115 in the new
Yeah.
year.
So not surprising. Uh, so then you go from there to an insurtech, like an
Yeah,
insurtech, like a
yeah.
very young. You were probably employee 25 kind of thing. So go to it. So you go to Agent Sync. You have to have felt like a kid in a candy shop.
It
Surround
was,
to
yeah,
get social media. So
yeah.
what led you to do that transition? What was it like to show up at an insurtech after
Yeah, yeah.
working
So,
here?
so one thing that we have to be, when we think about our insurance careers, um, some we've all known, we've all had colleagues who are claims adjuster for 40 years, underwriter for 40 years. And I think that's great. If you find that work and you find it meaningful and rewarding and challenging, awesome. For me, that is not how I am wired. And I think for some of us, we're not wired that way either. So, that combination of ambition and wanting to solve interesting problems in the business, helping the organization and people be more efficient, more impactful. Um, did some really amazing things at Grinnell Mutual. Launched their social strategy, content strategy. We did a big rebrand. We did launched an SEO strategy, um, and just kind of got to a point where in my role, that's one of the challenges about doing insurance marketing is, even though Grinnell Mutual's 800 plus employee company, those opportunities to move up in the organization, they weren't there unless I wanted to consider going a claims route or an IT route or an underwriting route. So, did some reflecting, realized as maybe evident from the call that marketing is my calling and where I can thrive and do my best. Um, and bring something special also in terms of that strategy, the things that we're talking about today. Where's this this intersection of storytelling and product and how we move forward and how we grow. And fortunate for me, as I started to consider a career and a next step outside of Grinnell Mutual, Agent Sync was in the middle of a hypergrowth curve, and so was one of about a dozen people that joined the marketing team around the same time. And and Tony, like you said, going from a carrier where um, there's strict scrutiny, shall we say? Everything is it's not four sets of eyes. It's feels like 14 sets of eyes sometimes. And that, and there's a place for that. That's really important, right? One, as we brought new members to the Grinnell Mutual team, who are like, why is it, approvals? Why do we have so many approvals? And it's like, I don't want anything anybody on this team creates end up in a courtroom as evidence um, against Grinnell Mutual. So, but to go from that sort of really critical eye legal review to um, an orientation to action. Being a venture-backed startup for Agent Sync, um, kind of grow or die. There's venture money, but the burn rate is something that venture companies think about a lot. Um, Bringing in revenue, acquiring customers, so that annual recurring revenue, that customer count, those are the bottom line metrics. Whereas with a carrier, we're thinking about things like loss ratio, combined ratio. Um, and, we have a different set of metrics. And of course, within underwriting and claims and other places, they've got their other core metrics that they're following too. So it took me about 2 months to again to rewire my brain from um, we have our approval processes and everything needs to be um, really buttoned up to um, let's just go for it. is this good enough? Is good enough. Okay, let's go. Let's measure it. Let's see what happens. Um, yeah, it was a refreshing change. For me too, coming from coming from property casualty carrier working with the independent agent channel to a company that served all corners, all segments of the insurance industry. So learning about annuities, learning about life insurance, learning about the many different ways that brokerages organize and that none of them call themselves brokerages. It was another, it was a wonderful experience and a lot of education. So, and then too, when you go from a 112, 113-year-old company to a 3.5-year-old company. When I joined, they had just turned 3 the previous fall. And so you say, well, okay, what's the process here? Oh, yeah, we haven't done this before. Oh, okay. Well, how's this? And fortunately, so many smart, talented people. So we all have things that have worked well for us. So, you know, again, something I had done at Grinnell Mutual when we brought in new people is kind of, this is the process that works for us now. But I want you to know, I don't expect you to do it this way. I want, kind of, this is something that's worked well for us, but there may be a better way. So once you get mastery on it, bring something different to it. And for us at Agents Inc., there was a lot of um, every member of the team. Well, we could do it this way. Okay, well let's just choose one. Sometimes that was the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's the person who did it first. Sometimes, and sometimes it was a little bit of both. Let's try it this way. Okay, well that went pretty well. Well, how can we improve on it the next month, the next quarter? Yeah, really refreshing. And then yeah, software, that SaaS, that B2B SaaS model. So there's, for listeners who have worked with it or in those organizations, right, there's usually that product marketing function, there's a demand gen function, there's a content function, marketing ops, and for us being a distributed team, hybrid, some working in person together in the office and then others working remotely. Just a lot of how do we build trust? How do we build transparency? Um, and do that communication so that we can support and support each other, get the work done as best we can.
What advice do you have for traditional insurance professionals, whether they're marketing or not marketing,
Mm.
who are tempted to make the transition to insurtech?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, if you're making the transition, first of all, I think if you're making the transition, if you're considering it, um, go for it. Like if the wiggle is there, lean into the wiggle. Um, but I guess a few pieces of advice, no matter what function. Um, One, I think be aware with InsurTech, like a lot of VC back. Um, it's an interesting, we live in interesting times. Hello, welcome to the interesting times. And so for insurtechs, especially ones that are backed by seed or some sort of series VC money, they're going to have a sensitivity to that burn rate and profit, revenue and profitability. Um, so I would say first, do your homework and make sure it's a financially sound company. Also do your homework. Make sure it's a real product that solves a real problem. I think I think those companies will winnow themselves out here in the next year or two. But make sure it's a real product, real problem. Agent Sync is both of those. And then the perception in the industry. Um, there's, I should say, two perceptions. One is, and this was definitely prevalent, 8, 10 years ago, InsurTech, innovation good. And now there's been enough insurtechs that did not deliver on that promise of innovation, that there's a real cynicism, kind of uh, perception of insurtech as, okay, they're a disruptor, but when they move fast and break things, they cost a lot of people money. And so there's kind of a hesitancy. So what you as an established insurance professional can bring to an insurtech is your expertise and your knowledge, your subject matter expertise and knowledge. Um, that's really valuable. Some of these founders, they have a great idea and they have a great vision, but um, they haven't gone out and ingested a claim necessarily. They haven't uh, worked with loss control um, to ingest that loss control data to better underwrite the risk. I think especially with AI, and you've interviewed some of these innovators in the space, we're going to see a lot of, I think for the better, a lot of improvements in small commercial in particular, and small business, but commercial lines in particular, they're complex. Um, uh, we talked about high net worth individuals. So those are complex in a different way because it's not just a home and it's not just a car, but it's multiple properties and you got some inland marine and these other things. So if you're ready to make that step, um, I think that's a big piece is, kind of where does your expertise, your subject matter expertise, where is it going to be set you apart as a candidate and add value to that organization? The other piece, and this right, this is the cautionary part, is those organizations aren't grow or die. So recognize that with that salary bump that you'll likely get because they're trying to poach you away from your carrier or agency or brokerage, there comes a risk that they may run out of money or they may have to make some draconian cuts before. So kind of it can be it can be really fun and exciting, and then all of a sudden, in an afternoon, it can change dramatically.
My business is largely recruiting for insurtech. So
Right?
I'm often stealing, almost always, I'm stealing traditional insurance talent
Hmm.
from insurance companies for insurtechs. And we try to be very honest with people. Hey, this is exciting. This is fun. You're gonna get to do a lot of things. It's a very
Hmm.
dynamic environment. It's a small company, so you'll be able to have an effect from the beginning. Um, and very likely they'll get bought out,
Yeah.
or they'll go out of business, or right, that like the company you're joining will not be in its current shape 5 years from now, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
so so like take that into account in your decision, right? Now, if my career advice for people, if you have a good parachute on your back, if you
Hmm.
if you've invested in yourself and gotten great insurance experience, you'll always be able to land back on the traditional insurance side, and you'll
Correct.
come back with really diverse experience and really kind of
Mhm.
innovative experience.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, like don't think that an insurtech is going to be as stable as a 100-year-old carrier. It's just not the way
Yeah.
things work.
It's just not, and that's a really good point. And also, Tony, at this point, some of our stable carriers and agencies aren't looking so stable either. Um, had a conversation a week or two ago with a fellow marketer, but someone who's worked a little bit with carriers and other in the insurance and insurtech spaces. And at this moment, again, we're recording in October 2023. Um, if the company hasn't done layoffs, they also avoid eye contact when asked about hiring plans. And you're probably seeing that a little bit on the recruiting front. There are companies that are growing, and there are companies that um, uh, solid strategy, and they know they can execute on that. Um, but it's a weird employment market, as you know even better than I do. And so yeah, I think for your listeners, really being honest and thinking critically, I guess would be the best way to put it. What do I really want out of that next step of my career? And I think of some of my colleagues at Grinnell Mutual, and um, they love to do great work. They showed up, they brought their full selves to work every day. They did great work, great colleagues, but they also had no, they did not have that wiggle to, um, whether it's ambition or advancement. They were very comfortable doing their role in that organization and doing it as best they could, and that was enough. And if that's kind of who you are, and that's wonderful. Be aware of that, and make sure, when you seek out the next opportunity, um, that it's scratching that itch for you. And if you're someone who uh, the slow pace at which we can move in this industry sometimes, if it is just affecting your full engagement in your work, if you're one of those people like it with the Gallup survey, if you're finding yourself no longer fully engaged as an employee, um, and we're this is not careers podcast, but you know what the signs are of not being fully engaged in your work. I think just be aware of that, and be um, accept it, and start to plot your escape. But like you said, the other piece with that is, um, you are trading in some security, and so make sure it could work out for the best. Um, but yeah, I don't think I feel like my experience at Agent Sync was a little bit more stable than some stories, good and bad, I've heard about working in the tech sector and working for an insurtech. But there was a lot of one. I remember in the interview process, a week feels like a month. I'm like, how could that be? And then like that week felt like 2 months. So there is a lot of especially for an organization that's going through a high growth phase. Uh, the the summit is still in the distance, right? But we may find, but we're foraging a trail. And so we may find, as we're making our way up that mountain, um, we have to back our way back down and go up a different trail, or right, we have to. It's very fluid, and at least my experience with carriers um, is fluid in the same way that molasses on a cold Iowa morning in winter is fluid.
So from molasses in a cold Iowa winter to like boiling
Yeah,
and
yeah,
constant dynamic. Uh, so post Agent Sync, you're doing some consulting work.
I am. I
Uh,
am.
so what?
Yeah, yeah. I have my fingers in a few pots right now. So I am working, ironically, with both an insurance or an insurance agency. I've has a freelance client, and then also a software company. So I'm firmly keeping one foot in each world as a freelancer. And then another thing that I'm doing as well right now is, learning from my experience at AgentSync, what we talked about today. Um, there are so many good, innovative products here in this industry. so many good people doing good work, but they haven't mastered their story yet. And so I am in this chapter. I'm looking for how I can bring my strengths as a storyteller, marketer, strategist, um, and help companies that have good products but bad marketing. And of course, the big challenge with that is if they have bad marketing or poor marketing, they're just hard to find. Because if they were easy to find, that means they have good marketing and their product might not be as good. So, so I've started to reach out. I've been reaching out to different, particularly in the shared space, incubators and other accelerators, and just saying, um, this is my skill set. This is something I've brought to an insurance carrier, an insurtech software company. Here in Iowa, we have an accelerator, global insurance accelerator in Des Moines, which you're familiar with. Dan Israel's the executive director of that wonderful organization. Mentored several of those companies. So, I want you are doing the Lord's work, finding these companies and helping them go from idea to seed or further. And I would like to bring my marketing. I think of I'm here in Iowa, right? And it's harvest season here in October. Every night you see um, combines in the field with the lights on, and you see corn, all the farm equipment that you played with as a preschooler. You see full size going down the highway or down the road, and so what I'm thinking about right now is um, I can't anticipate which of these companies, their idea, their product is going to take root and flourish. Um, but I'm confident that things like these accelerators, like Global Insurance Accelerator, Broker Tech Accelerator, there are some others. These organizations, one of them is going to have the next insurance innovation that's going to transform our industry. I just don't know which one it's going to be.
Hmm. It's hard.
So I'm carving out part of my time to build my network and to make connections with those organizations and the companies that they are supporting, accelerating, and helping with seed rounds. Um, don't know which one it's going to be yet, but I'm confident that by working with them, I'm going to help them get that product to the market, help them to find, whether that's get to Series A, Series B, go from one customer to 10, go from 10 customers to 100. Um, the thing that I find again and again is, you have good product, but how do you tell that story? So whether it's the investor, that they see this as a real market opportunity, something that can have their investment can have an outsized impact, and then for the customers too, right? Like the old line, nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. Um, I don't know any stories yet, but I'm sure people have been fired for hiring an insurtech in their organizations. It just has to have happened at this point, and um, so now we've got this chilling effect, and so your people view your product because they've been burned by other insurtechs. They view your product with skepticism, and they lack trust. So I can bring my decade plus of insurance experience, um, can tap into my network, and let's help to tell that story that this is a real product. You have that you're not an outside disruptor. You're a trusted insider.
Fantastic. I love the advice of getting involved in the accelerators. Uh,
Hmm.
right, if you're near Iowa, that's GIA and Broker Tech. If you're in Minnesota, that's on ramp.
Yep. If
Um,
you're Hartford, the Hartford InsurTech community, they have a symposium every year. Of course, there's InsurTech New York.
Mhm.
I'm shocked that Ohio and Columbus in particular doesn't have one yet. It's
That
criminal.
is a very good point. There's a
Um,
ton of insurtechs in
I
Columbus.
know. Like
And
maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to be that guy. If you're listening to this and you want to help make that happen, let's talk.
uh, so
My DMs are open.
there is such a thing as InsurTech Ohio, and the guy running InsurTech Ohio is running it full time.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
he
Okay, good.
just left, I think, Allstate in the last year, so it might be
Okay.
worth reaching out to him.
Okay.
Uh, so, great conversation today. Thank you for telling us
Yeah,
your story and
my
talking about the
pleasure.
differences in marketing for digital
Yeah,
marketing for a 100-year-old, 115-year-old company versus a 3-year-old insurtech. Uh, compare and contrast. And thank you for the advice for future marketers and
absolutely.
just young insurance professionals. Thank you very much for your time today.
You bet. Thanks, Tony.